What's happening, everybody? Boy Big Brandoh, and welcome to another episode of Bullshit with Brandoh. Now, for this episode, I wanted to talk about my first heat press, the first time I got into it, how I got into it, and all of that shit. Now, you see it on my channel all the time, and I'm talking about the heat press. I'm showing you guys how to build your business around it. For myself, the road wasn't as smooth as it is today. So, dating back to like 2003, 2002, when I started seeing vinyl and heat pressing and shit like that, was myself going to the swap meet and just seeing people stand in line with the Korean lady at the indoor swap meet making t-shirts. They were making rest in peace t-shirts. They were making local rappers were getting shirts done for their shows there. People were making happy birthday t-shirts and proposal t-shirts and all kind of stuff, right? So I would always see this long line at the swap meet waiting for people to get shirts done. I'm like, damn, man, like every time that I've seen vinyl or heat transfer vinyl or heat press t-shirts, I've always felt like really thick vinyl, plasticky feel and shit like that. Now, this is, like I said, this is early 2000s when I'm seeing all this stuff, and I didn't understand that there's different vinyls. I didn't understand, the vinyl cutter process. I didn't understand the heat press process. I was used to screen printing t-shirts, but I seen the money that can be made off of one-off t-shirts or just doing, small quantity, low run type of shirts and orders for people. Now with the screen print setup, I could do t-shirts all day long, right? But to do one t-shirt for somebody, it would require a lot of work. I would have to coat a screen, I would have to burn that screen, I would have to, setup and cleanup was exactly the same. You guys hear me talk about this all the time. Whether you're going to do one t-shirt or you're going to do 1,000 t-shirts, the setup and the cleanup will always be the same for screen printing. Now, it didn't make any sense for me to, charge, 40, 50 bucks for one t-shirt, right? They would have to buy the screen, they would have to pay the setup fee, they would have to pay the labor fee. All of that stuff for one t-shirt was overkill. Now, I seen that the swap meet was charging basically per letter. It was all text, and the lady at the swap meet had this big like laminated piece of paper. It was like 11 by 17 laminated, and she had maybe 25 to 30 different fonts on there. So it said the font name, and then it had numbers and all kind of other stuff just to show what it would look like. She would charge by the size of the text and then by per letter. So say if you wanted a t-shirt that said Brandoh, which is 7 letters, and say I wanted it to be 3 inches by 12 inches wide or something like that, what she would do was she'll type it in. You would look at the screen and say, yeah, it says Brandoh. You tell her if you want it arced or if you want it, wavy or whatever it was. She could do it right then and there for you. Now, I thought it was kind of cool because I'm looking at the screen, she's typing it out. I didn't understand the cut software. I didn't understand none of the stuff. I just thought, damn, she's doing this really quick and making a t-shirt. So you would have to buy the blank t-shirt from the vendor right across from her that sold blank t-shirts. So you would buy like a Pro Club for like $5, $6, depending on size and color. So now you're into the shirt for $6 already. And then she's charging you X amount of dollars for, per letter and all that shit, which comes out to like 20, 25 bucks. So you're almost into this custom shirt for $30 buying from her. So in my head, I was like, damn, there's a lot of money to be made if you're just doing one-off t-shirts. But I still didn't understand the cut software. I didn't understand where to buy the equipment. I didn't understand none of that stuff. So I got one t-shirt made from her, and then I went home and I was just feeling it and trying to figure out how the whole process works. Because I've seen decals done before, right? Decal vinyl, cut it out, and then you can slap it up on your car or whatever it was. Super cool. I didn't understand heat transfer vinyl. I just thought they were putting regular decal vinyl onto a shirt, heat pressing it, and it was sticking. I didn't understand that there was different types of vinyl. None of that, man. So what I did was started doing a little bit of research, trying to figure stuff out. I was very indecisive on ordering online. I seen eBay had a lot of heat press packages, like you could buy a vinyl cutter with the heat press for X amount of dollars, and I was like, man, I don't know if I need all that equipment. I don't even know what I need. So what I did was I went back to the Del Amo swap meet And I asked the lady, I said, hey, where can I buy all this? And she did not want to give up any sources. She didn't want to give up anything. So what I did was, as I was talking to her, I just looked at the heat press and seen what it looked like. Then I was looking at the plotter, or the vinyl cutter, which was a Graphtec. No, a Roland. It was a Roland, and I think it was like 24, 28 inches. It was a long one. And so I wrote that down. And I was like, all right, you don't want to give me none of this. So I went back home and I did a little bit more research. I'm online. I'm trying to figure out Roland cutters. And at the time, I didn't even know it was called a cutter. I was looking up printer, which a lot of you guys do. You guys always hit me up like, hey, does that vinyl printer do this, this, and this when they're talking about the Cameo? There was not a lot of information out there. So what I started doing was looking at other places that did it. So I would go to different swap meets. There was a guy in the middle of the mall that had a kiosk that was making t-shirts, and nobody really wanted to give up the information. One of my good homeboys, Bob the Barber, who I've known forever, came out from the military, and he had all the equipment. So the dope thing was he was already banging out shirts for him and his homeboys when he got out of the military. Maybe he was doing it in the military too, but he had a small little setup, and it was dope. So he was the big driving force to me actually transitioning to getting shirts done with, you know, a vinyl cutter and a heat press. He kind of explained what he was doing, how it worked, and all that shit. And I was like, fuck, that's the same way the swap meet was doing it. So I went out and bought the same exact gear that he had. What he had was the Roland sticker. This is before the Cameos and Crickets, the small size vinyl cutters. He had one that was made for a 15-inch roll that could cut 15 inches, right? So he had the stick of 15. So I went out and bought the same thing. Back then it was like $800, $900 for that little cutter. And then he also had a heat press. So what I did was I went on eBay and I bought cheap Chinese made one. I think it was like $200, and I think shipping was like $65 or something like that. It's like $265 for this Chinese made press, 15 by 15 clamshell. Then I had the Roland sticker vinyl cutter. So I had the same stuff that Bob had. The only thing that I didn't understand was how the software worked. I was used to using Photoshop and Illustrator. I wasn't too familiar with the actual vinyl cutting software. So a lot of trial and error, a lot of wasted vinyl, but still at this time I wasn't buying the correct vinyl. I haven't made any t-shirts yet, but I just made a few decals and kind of was getting my feet wet right before anything. So when it came down to actually pressing a t-shirt, I was using decal vinyl. So I didn't know the difference at the time. I just thought vinyl was vinyl, and went on eBay and I bought some vinyl and boom, cut it out. I remember Bob telling me, hey, you got to mirror the image because you're going to be pressing it backwards. So you know, flip the image so you could cut it out and then you press it on the shirt. I did everything that he did. So take the decal vinyl, take the t-shirt, heat press. I didn't know anything about settings or anything. I was just winging it. I just said, oh shit, Bob pressed his shirts at 350. I'm going to press mine at 350. And boom, I tried it out. Melted the fuck out of the vinyl onto the t-shirt. Nothing worked. It was just a big fucking mess. It was just, I'm over here trying to heat up decal vinyl under my press and I'm just melting the shit away. It's not sticking. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I cut it right. I did everything right. I didn't understand the difference between heat transfer vinyl and actual decal vinyl. So I ruined that shirt. I'm like, all right, fuck it. I'm not buying, you know, any more shirts. I'm not buying any more vinyl. This shit doesn't work. Fuck this. I'm going back to screen print. So I pushed it off for a while, man. I'm talking about for fucking months, almost a year. And when I'm getting shirts done, I'm just hitting up Bob and I'm like, hey, can you bang out this shirt for me, this and that? He's already doing it. This is before we even thinking about creating a brand or anything. I'm just doing one-off shirts through him and I'm like, fuck, I need to get into this shit. So when I finally do a little research and then I find out about HTV heat transfer vinyl and then I find out it's different than decal vinyl. I've seen HTV on eBay, but the price was always crazy. It was like $40, $45 for a roll. And I'm like, fuck, I could get this other vinyl right here for, you know, $10 a roll. Why am I going to spend $45? I didn't understand there was a difference. So I was buying decal vinyl, but I was just ignoring HTV because I didn't know nothing about it. I just thought it was just priced really crazy. So what I started doing was hitting up Bob and saying, hey, where do you buy your vinyl from? So he told me that he was buying it online. We also found out that McLogan sold heat transfer vinyl, shit like that later on. But at the time, he was buying the shit online. And what I did personally was told me, hey, what's the exact brand, everything that you're buying, so I could buy the same exact thing. A lot of you guys hit me up all the time and want the same exact equipment and want the same stuff. And I get it, because you know it works for somebody else, so you want to use the same exact stuff, right? And I totally get that, because I did the same thing with the homie. So Bob told me, all right, I'm using this type of vinyl. I'm using, you know, you got to make sure you're buying the stuff that's made for cotton t-shirts if you're pressing on cotton t-shirts. So, oh shit, that's how it works. There's different types. So he explained to me how heat transfer vinyl worked and decal vinyl worked. Boom. Light went off. I said, oh shit, I'm back in the game. So now I go on eBay and I order some heat transfer vinyl. Like, no wonder this stuff was $45, because this stuff you make t-shirts with. I cut it out and I just did like some little basic logos and then press it on a shirt. Boom, it worked. Now I understand the heat press settings. Now I understand all of this stuff, application settings, and I start, you know, kind of just making t-shirts for myself. But I always wanted to fall back on screen printing. I always wanted to be like, all right, you know, I could do this, but let me make some screens for this, because I know I could bang out more t-shirts a lot faster than weeding and all that shit. So the homie Bob tells me, all right, this is the way we could do things. He showed me how to layer vinyl. He showed me all this stuff. And I'm like, man, this shit is fucking crazy. I'm used to doing, you know, burning a screen for one color, burning another screen for another color to accomplish the same thing he's doing with heat transfer vinyl. So after that, I'm getting into it and I'm kind of figuring out how I can make money, what I could do. I still have my hand in a lot of, you know, a lot of different wrappers and stuff like that. So I'm like, man, let me make you a couple shirts for this show, or let me make you one shirt. Now I'm doing birthday t-shirts. Now I'm doing a lot of different stuff as far as custom work, right? And for myself, I didn't understand the money that could be made with the heat press and vinyl cutter. I just thought, you know, I'm going to bang out a few shirts here and there. But when I started thinking about the Korean lady at the swap meet, she pretty much had a line out the door every fucking morning, and it was because people were trying to get their shirts done before whatever day. So say it was like a Friday morning, she'd have like 25 people waiting in line to get shirts done, whether it was like rest in peace t-shirts, whether it was like just random ass fucking rapper t-shirts or whatever it was. That's where they were going. So I was like, how the fuck am I going to get that kind of business? How do I promote that stuff? How do I even get involved with making shirts like that for people? Because now I have the capabilities of screen printing. I have the capabilities of using a heat press. And slowly but surely, the screen print equipment got less used every single day, because now I can make as many different designs as I want. Whatever I could come up with, I'm already banging the shit out with vinyl and just making t-shirts, boom, on the fly. Instead of making the design, burning it, going through that whole process, now I could just bang the shit out with the vinyl cutter, weed it out, heat press it on, and boom, I'm fucking rolling, right? So I'm thinking, how am I going to make this money? How am I going to use all of this equipment to make money for myself, right? Because I was already into this shit for almost $1,000, or a little over $1,000, because the vinyl cutter was so expensive. The heat press wasn't that expensive, but I didn't understand, you know, the difference between the really high quality presses and the cheap Chinese made ones. I just thought a heat press was a heat press. And once I'm really getting into it, I'm starting to see how the heat press is kind of fucking shit up, because I didn't know anything about laser thermometers. I didn't know anything about any. I was just pretty much going off the readout and just going along with my business. Like, all right, the instructions say 350, set the press at 350, and boom. Next thing you know, I'm doing t-shirts and I'm starting to see like burn marks, scorch marks that I didn't understand at the time. I'm just talking about just, you know, brown squares on t-shirts, and I'm like, man, what the fuck is this? So I thought it was the t-shirt, so I'm changing up the t-shirt brand, and I'm still going through it, and I'm torching all these shirts, and I didn't understand why. And sometimes I even like fucking tried to ignore it and was just like, oh, you know, whatever it is. And then I see the customer wearing the shirt and there's like a big brown square on like a black t-shirt or a gray t-shirt, whatever it was. But I didn't know that the press was reading 350, but the actual temperature was at like 4 something. And I was over here pressing these shirts up and I'm just burning shirts and I didn't understand what was going on. And I really started to notice this when I was layering HTV. So I was doing like, 2-color t-shirts or something. So I would press it for the first layer, recommended duration, right? So say it was like 10, 12 seconds for that vinyl. I'm pressing it at what I think is 350 and boom. I do it for the full duration, lift it up, peel the plastic back, and then I put the next layer on. Then I press it again for another 10 seconds or whatever it is, whatever the recommended setting was. But I didn't know that I was just supposed to do it for a few seconds, let it up, and then put the next color on, and then do the full thing. I was doing the full thing for each color. Next thing you know, there's a big brown mark on the t-shirt. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What am I doing wrong? So what I did was I went onto this old forum. I forget the name of it, but it was online and it was pretty much for like people that did like rhinestones on t-shirts and other things. They were decorating garments with a heat press. And through there, that's where I found out the laser thermometer. I was like, oh shit, like you could get this and actually check the temperature, know when it's done heating up and whatever. So I buy a laser thermometer, and the one I bought was like $35 from Home Depot or some shit. I didn't think about buying it online or anywhere else. $35. So I get it, and my press is done heating up, 350. I shoot it, and it's at like 405 or 408 or something. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Still, I don't understand the difference between the Chinese press and actual quality press. I'm just like, hey, this thing's fucking up. So what I start doing is dialing it back, right? So the readout will now say like 320. When I hit it with the laser thermometer, now it's pressing at like 360 or something like that. So I'm doing this whole back and forth thing, trying to compensate for why it's heating up a lot more, why it's not. And then what I started noticing was the square went away, the burn marks, because I was torching the shirts. But now the actual vinyl's not sticking. You know what I mean? The HTV's not sticking because now I'm tweaking the settings because I'm trying to get my press to read at a certain temp to not burn the shirts. But now the actual vinyl's not sticking to the shirt. It's peeling up and it's coming up a little bit. I didn't understand moisture in t-shirts. I didn't understand any of that stuff at this time. I'm just pressing shirts and thinking they're going to stay on. So what I'm doing is I'm making shirts for people, and people are starting to hit me up like, hey man, like the shit came off. I threw it in the wash. The whole thing peeled off, all of that. I'm like, oh man, now I got to change my heat transfer vinyl company because the company's making a crappy product. That's what I'm thinking. So I find a different company. It's a little bit more expensive. I'm thinking, all right, more expensive. It's got to be better. I buy that, dial in the settings. So now the press is reading at, I think that one was supposed to be pressed at like 330 or some shit like that. And no, it was supposed to be pressed at like 370, I think. So 370 for whatever seconds. So I'm trying to match the 370 to my laser gun, to the thermometer. So the readout's reading a really wonky ass number. And I'm like, all right, let me press this up. It sticks. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, this stuff's a lot better. It's, it's going to work, this and that. And then now I'm giving these out to customers. And then the customers are still coming back and saying, hey man, it peeled after the wash. I'm like, oh, my settings are right. I don't understand what it is. But what it was is moisture in the t-shirts. I didn't understand about pre-pressing. I didn't know all this shit, right? I'm just thinking of dialing in the right temperature to press the shirt. I'm thinking about not burning the shirt, and I'm just like, all right, I got this really high quality heat transfer vinyl because I spent X amount of dollars on it. So boom, I should be in business, right? I didn't understand about pre-pressing the shirt. I didn't understand that there's moisture in the shirt. I'm just pressing directly on there, giving it out. So when I start doing this, and not to bash anybody that goes through it this way, but I understand the excitement around pressing t-shirts and wanting to sell them. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't take the time to do the research or test out the transfers or test out the t-shirt or my equipment before offering it to customers. I just wanted to make money like everybody else. I just wanted to fucking come up, man. So I'm knocking out these orders and I'm getting the business, but the quality that I'm putting out is fucking up because I'm getting so many complaints of people hitting me back up. I'm like, hey, the shirt's peeling, or hey, this shit's fucking up, or what's going on here? I didn't understand the pressure. I didn't understand nothing about pre-pressing the shirt. I just thought I was on top of things with my laser gun and I'm checking the temperature and I'm like, oh, I already corrected that. Now I'm not torching the shirt. But I didn't understand that after the customer gets it, whether they wash it or whatever they do, if the print's not holding up, obviously they're not going to order from me anymore because I didn't take the time to actually test the shit out on my end before offering it to the customers. I'm going to take a small break right here for a sponsor and then we'll get right back into it. Yo, shout out to the good people over at Local Roots Clothing for sponsoring this podcast right here. If you wanted to rep your roots, make sure you go to localrootsclothing.com. Once again, www.localrootsclothing.com. I'm going to leave the link in the description box. It'll be floating on this screen right here also. But if you wanted that dope shit and you wanted to rep that local roots, make sure you hit them up. Once again, www.localrootsclothing.com. Now, back to the show. Yo, shout out to the sponsor, Local Roots. Fuck with them. Now, if you've been following along, I've been talking about getting into the heat press game. Also, I've been talking about how I didn't test out my shit and I'm getting a lot of complaints and a lot of people hitting me up like, hey, this shit ain't working out. Now, I did all the research that I thought I needed, right? I thought about hitting up the forums, finding out all kind of shit like the laser thermometer. That was a game changer for me. So I thought I was already ahead of the game by using a laser thermometer because I thought not everybody did that. What I didn't do is figure out the full process on how to actually press shirts. The shit that really messed me up was I didn't pre-press any of the shirts to get the moisture out. So I'm pressing vinyl directly onto, a t-shirt that's retaining moisture. So I'm not actually getting a good solid press. It's not adhering to the t-shirt. It's kind of just floating on top of the t-shirt. It's sticking in some parts, but at the same time, after you wash it, the shit peels up and it peels off whole. That's really bad. I didn't understand that because I wasn't pressing the shirt, washing it. I didn't test nothing out. So what I started doing was saying, all these people keep complaining. I don't understand what they're talking about. I pressed the t-shirt for myself and I washed it. After I washed it, same exact thing. It was like wrinkled up and then the corners were peeling up and I could just easily pull it off with no pressure. No real force. I'm just peeling it up easy and it's coming off clean off the t-shirt. I didn't understand that because I'm paying all this money for this vinyl that I thought was like the best vinyl because of the price, but I was just applying it all wrong. You know what I mean? So what I started doing was adjusting my laser thermometer the way I'm trying to compensate for the heat. So I press a little bit hotter, not too hot where I'm burning the shirt, but I press a little bit hotter for a little bit longer and then I wash it. And then I'm like, shit, it's still not working. So what I started doing was I would wash the shirt, dry it, and then press that same shirt. What I didn't understand was when I would press it and raise it up, there's all this steam coming out because the t-shirt had so much moisture in the shirt. I just thought it was smoke. I thought I was burning the shirt. So I'm like, oh fuck, like I gotta bring my heat down. What I kept doing was bringing the heat down, but it was just steam. It wasn't necessarily smoke. I didn't understand this. So I said, oh fuck. So I'm adjusting the heat setting and I'm pressing it and I'm raising it up and then I keep doing it until I see no smoke, which was the steam. So what I was doing was actually just pre-pressing the shirt and releasing all the steam out of the shirt. So then I press the vinyl on there and it sticks perfectly. I'm like, oh shit. So I think those are my recommended settings, right? I think these are the settings that are working best for me because there's no smoke coming off the shirt. It's actually, pressing onto the shirt, washing it, and it looks good. But I didn't understand that I was actually pre-pressing it. So what I did was I went to McLogan and I was telling them my problem because I'm like, man, I'm buying this vinyl for like $50 and it's not working. You know what I mean? It's like the shirt's smoking and shit like that. And they were like, well, are you pre-pressing? I said, what the fuck is that? They said, well, you got to pre-press the garment to get the moisture out. So I said, oh, fuck. So I said, how do I know when all the moisture's out there? Like, you'll see the steam come up and then you will see no steam. If you pre-press it and there's no steam, there's no moisture in it. I said, oh shit, that's what I was seeing. I thought it was smoke, but it was actually steam coming up. So they told me, you know, you don't have to buy that vinyl that I was buying on eBay. They were just telling me that when you buy vinyl, you're buying off of the thickness and the feel of it. You're not necessarily buying it because it's a better vinyl and it's not going to peel up or whatever. Most vinyls will stay on the t-shirt as long as it's applied correctly. Nobody explained this to me. I didn't bother to look for this type of information. So I was just really going into it blind. So I go to McLogan and I buy some vinyl that they have there. Boom, pressing it on the shirts. And now I'm pre-pressing. Now I have my laser thermometer, checking the settings. Everything's going good. I'm back in business somewhat. So I'm banging out shirts, and the people that I fucked their shirts up, obviously I made right with them so I could keep getting their business. But the thing that really sucked was my press is starting to go out. And I don't understand this either. The heat's starting to fluctuate where it's like it heats up and it's at the recommended heat setting. I'm checking it with the gun. Everything's good. I press maybe 2 or 3 shirts. And then when I raise it up, now the heat cooled off by like 40 degrees, like something really, really crazy. I'm not checking the press every time I'm pressing. I'm just thinking, all right, it's at its right setting. I check it once and I need to keep going. So I put a t-shirt down, I put the vinyl on top and I press it. And then when I pull the clear backing for the vinyl, the whole thing comes up. Like the shit didn't even adhere to the shirt. So I'm like, oh, what the hell's going on now? I didn't understand how the coil of the heating element worked. I didn't understand none of that in the press. I didn't understand that I had a cheap press. But I was doing so much pressing that press couldn't hold up to the production that I was putting it through. So the heating element started to get really, really like finicky and kind of messing up. So I would press 3 shirts, and then from doing this, I knew that the heating element was going to mess up, so I would recheck the press, and then I would start bumping it up like 12 degrees or something like that, so I could get it back to where I needed it to be. Like, let's say it was supposed to be at 360. After pressing those 3 shirts, it would be down at like 300, and then I would have to dial it up 12 degrees to start heating it back up, and it'll get back up to 360. Press another 2 shirts, and then I would have to dial it in again and keep going up. And then I said, man, there's something not right with this press. So I tried everything. I went to McLogan and I told them what the deal was, and they were just like, oh man, you got a cheap press. I never heard of that brand. I said I bought it on eBay. They're like, oh, these Chinese made presses aren't made for production. They're made for, you know, just the hobbyists and shit like that, just to get going. But if you're really doing a lot of volume, you're gonna need a better press. And that's where the first press that I think I seen was the Stahls, the Hottronics one. And I was like, oh man, I don't got no fucking $2,000 for a good press. Like, to me, I was thinking like, I'm not doing that much volume to compensate for the $2,000 price tag. To me, it was just fucking crazy. So I bought another Chinese one. I was like, all right, fuck it. This one lasted me this long. I think it was like 1.5 years. Let me get another one from eBay. So here's another $300 press that I'm getting off of eBay. And this one starts to actually like rust, like the heating element on top. Maybe I use it for like a month or so. And then next thing you know, I'm pressing shirts, but it's leaving like a rust mark on the shirts. And I'm like, I know I'm not cooking the shirt, overcooking it. Like, I'm not heating it up where it's hot as fuck, but for some reason the fucking top of the Platen is starting to rust over. Whatever kind of metal they use, it didn't hold up, and I'm pressing shirts and I'm leaving rust marks on the shirts. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I hit up the homie Bob. I'm like, hey man, this shit's fucking up too. So he tells me like, man, maybe you might need to buy another one. Maybe you got a lemon, maybe you got like a really fucked up one, so you should look into buying another press. At this time, I'm like, man, fuck, I'm spending $300 every fucking few months just for a press. Maybe I should invest in a good one. Then that's where let me reiterate this. After spending so much money, that's where I looked at Heat Press Nation. But when I first seen Heat Press Nation, I thought it was like the website looked really dated, and I didn't understand where they were located or how things worked. I just seen them offering a lot of different heat presses. They had their own models, and then they also carry, like Hottronics and all these other brands. And I was just like, man, this kind of looks like a shady little website to order from. I was like, I don't know if I want to order. I knew eBay and I trusted eBay, but at the same time, I wasn't really trying to buy from Heat Press Nation. I thought it was like a scam or some shit, right? Like I was gonna order one press, but then they're gonna send me some Chinese made stuff right after that. And so I found out that at the time, I think they were in Fullerton or Brea or something like that before they moved. And that's when I actually went out and bought a real press from them. And that's the Signature series that you see to this day. Like I said, this sucker's old as hell, man. Like 9 years old or something like that. A little bit, no, maybe longer than that. Yeah, it might be, I would say 11 years old. I don't know, somewhere along those lines. But what I did was I went to Heat Press Nation before they moved, and I bought it from them. Like I went into their actual, not even a showroom, it was like an office space, and they had a warehouse in the back, and I bought the press from them right then and there. Will call, picked that sucker up. Well, not even will call. I walked in and said, hey, I want to buy a heat press. They're like, what the hell? We don't take walk-ins. But they were cool as hell, and they were like, fuck it, man, you're here. They took me through the online portal. I don't know. It was like we're doing an online order, but I just got it right then and there. Didn't have to pay for shipping, which was cool. But at the time, I think it was a little different to have people come and just pick the shit up instead of them just shipping it out. Cool thing was they plugged it up right there for me. They showed me that it heats up. They had their own laser thermometer, showed me, boom, it's heating up to 200 something. The gun's rating 200 and something. You're good to go. Packaged it up, threw it in my car, drove home. Since then, this has been the best press ever that I've ever used. I've never had an issue with it. So going from the cheap Chinese ones that you buy on eBay, Amazon, all that, it's cool to get going. It's cool to get started. It's cool to get your feet wet without having to invest a lot of money. But the money that you invest in one of these cheap presses, Heat Press Nation now sells stuff like this Craft Pro back here, or the M Press or Black Series press, or along the lines of like $300 or something like that. You could get a good quality press that the company stands behind. Obviously, this Craft Pro's new, but it's really dope, and it doesn't break the bank. So if you were on the fence of spending like $250 on like one of those eBay, Amazon presses that like changes out, like it could do mugs and t-shirts and small shirts and all this stuff where you change out the heat, platen and the bottom platen, and you're just it's like a Swiss Army knife of a heat press, and that one's like $250. If you were on the fence and you're just trying to make t-shirts, I would highly recommend going with something like that, because these presses, the customer service that you get with Heat Press Nation is dope as hell. And for me, that's always been a dope selling point, because I've had the Signature series for so long. It is one of those things, you get what you pay for, you know what I mean? And at the time, I think this press was like $700 or something, but it's held up all these years. I put thousands on top of thousands of t-shirts through this machine, and no issues. I've never had to bring it in. I've never had to do anything crazy to it. It's always held up, and it heats up, and it presses the shirts like I want it to. You know what I mean? Which is really dope. And for myself, obviously I have links in the description to buy presses for all budgets, but I personally like buying through them and dealing with them because they make it easy for me to reach out to them if I did have an issue. There's some people that hit me up and say, hey, my press is doing this, I bought the same one you have, or whatever it is. I tell them to reach out to Heat Press Nation direct, and when they do, their customer service is usually on point with troubleshooting for them, or getting them what they need to fix their press or figure out what's wrong with it over the phone, through email, whatever it is. So that's why I stand behind this company. Outside of that, from a business standpoint, the investment is really, really low if you think about it. I mean, I could get the Hottronics or the DKs or any of these other higher end presses, but for the production that I do, the Signature series obviously holds up hands down, man. It's been fucking cool. So when everybody hits me up and says, hey, what do you think about this random name press that I found on Amazon, I always tell them, it's cool if that's what you want to get into, and you don't want to drop a big fucking budget on a press. because a lot of times people don't understand that they don't want to, they're on the fence with the business, right? And if you don't want to invest a ton of money into it and you just want to get your feet wet, by all means, getting the Chinese ones from Amazon or eBay is cool, because you could always upgrade later. But I always try to push people to buy a decent quality press for the same amount of money. That way you're not going to have the same issues that I did, where the heating element's all fucked up or the shit's starting to rust over and fucking up shirts. That way you could actually buy something decent. And then if you ever wanted to resell it, or say if it's not for you, there's still good resale value to it. You're not going to lose a lot of money if you wanted to put it up on Craigslist or OfferUp or something like that. And if you ever wanted to just upgrade because maybe you're ramping up production, you could always upgrade to a better press and still sell, your starter press on OfferUp or Craigslist and shit like that. You go on Craigslist and you'll find a bunch of the Chinese made ones, but you're taking a gamble because you don't know if the people are selling it because it's fucked up, or they're saying, no, it works, look, it heats up. But then after 2 presses, next thing you know, the heating element's all fucking jacked up. You're almost wasting money at that point. You know what I mean? So always remember the whole thing of you get what you pay for. It's fucking cool. But if you're on the fence about heat presses, you could always check out the refurbished section of Heat Press Nation, or buy a Craft Pro or an M Press or Black Series press and just get your foot in the door and see if it's for you. You know what I mean? So this setup right here, like the Cameo is like $220. This press is, I think, like $200 to $220 or something like that. So around like $450 or something like that, $440. You could get this and be in the ball game, ready to go. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. For me, you don't have to buy the same press that I have. Obviously, you want to buy it because you know that it works, and that's what I use. That's super cool, man. There's nothing wrong with that shit. But this setup right here will get you going in no time. You know what I mean? You just plug it up and start going. So if you're looking for any type of, vinyl cutter, heat transfer vinyl, any of that stuff, I have links in the description box of any of my videos, this video being one of them. But you don't have to buy with me. You could buy through everywhere else. But make sure, I want to get this point across, is if you're using a new heat transfer vinyl, or you're using a new heat transfer, like a Plastisol Transfer, something like that, test out the product before you offer it to your customers. Take the time and do yourself a favor and test it out. Find the best settings that work for your setup, whether it's doing a wash test, whether it's, fluctuating the heat or the duration of pressing, or whatever it is that works best for you. So that way and you could be confident when you offer it to the customers and be like, hey, check it out. I know I washed this shirt 25 times with no issues, so your customer will not have those same issues. You know what I mean? You'll be more confident when doing that. If you were to just like say, press the shirt and then give it to the customer, you don't even know how it's going to hold up in the wash, you're going to get a lot of complaints, because what if it cracks? What if it peels? What if it messes up? It's not the actual transfer or vinyl, it's the application. That's all it is. If you dial in your application settings to work what's best for you and your setup, you'll be way more confident in offering that to your customers, man. That's something I wish somebody would have told me early on, so I wouldn't have made a ton of mistakes. But now I want to actually get that out to you guys. And an easy way to do this is, say if you're using a new heat transfer vinyl, you don't even have to run it through the cutter. You can just cut little squares or circles or any kind of shape like this big, and then you press it on the shirt. So say if this shirt was laying on the press, you would just press one little circle of the vinyl on, the recommended setting, say 350 for 10 seconds. Then right below it, you could do 360 for 10 seconds. Right below that, 370 for 10 seconds, so on and so on. And then on the back side of the shirt, you could do it at, let's say, go lower in temperature, right? So if the recommended is 350, on the back, you do 340. Underneath that, you do 320, 310. And then you wash that shit. And then anytime there's laundry going in there, you just keep washing that motherfucker. Keep washing it. That way you're going to get the best setting. And you write the shit down, right? So after you get it out of the wash, after the 10th, 12th wash or whatever, you find out which one is actually holding up the best. Then that way you could say, oh shit, 350 started to peel up. That's not good. 360 It's peeling a little, but not too much. 370 lays perfect. 380's cracking. So that way you know what your recommended settings are. This is the easiest way to do it. It's time consuming because you have to throw it in the wash. But if, you know, whoever's washing clothes, or if you are, just throw it in with every single load. Wash it, dry it. Wash it, dry it. That way you know how it's going to hold up and what's going to be the best setting for yourself and pretty much for whatever you're going to offer your customers. Same goes for Plastisol transfers or screen printed transfers. You don't have to press the whole transfer design on there. You could cut that transfer up into small little pieces and then do the same thing. Press it here, press it here. You're not wearing the shirt out. It's just for a test. But when you test out your transfer or your heat transfer vinyl or whatever you're doing and dialing in your settings, this right here makes you way more confident in knowing what you're offering your customers. And when the customer gets the t-shirt at home, you know if they washed it 5 times, it's going to hold up. If they washed it 10 times, it's going to hold up because you did your part on your end to test the shit out, right? Hopefully this helps you guys out. Hopefully you guys have a better understanding on how I got into heat pressing and my fuck ups and all that shit. I'm hoping my mistakes will be your mistakes, so that way you could just learn from them and be like, all right, let me just fucking do this because Big Brandoh fucked up here. I don't want to fuck up and waste money. Let me waste the money for you guys so that way you guys could actually get into this shit and start going smooth. Like I said, I do this shit because nobody put me on early on. Nobody gave me the guidance. Now I have some sort of information that I can share with you guys. I don't know everything, and I always say that I don't know everything, but this is the shit that works for myself. So obviously I want to relay it back to you guys, all right? Appreciate you guys. Thanks for fucking with the podcast. And yeah, if you guys got any questions, make sure you leave it in the comments because that's where I'm most active at. So if you got questions, leave them in the comments. I go back and forth with everybody. Catch you guys on the next one. Yeah.